Hey there, and welcome back to Tim Talks Cooking. Today, we are talking, you better get ready for this because it's a good one. We are talking keto onion rings, my friend. That's right, I said keto, low-carb onion rings, and you are going to love this recipe if, like me, you haven't had onion rings in what seems like forever. I think in my case, it's been almost an entire year because I've been on the diet for about that long. Anyway, I got this recipe, the high-carb version of this recipe that I'm adapting here, I got from my buddies over at Kitchen Queers, from Mitch and his partner, Chef Phil. Anyway, Mitch, hi guys. It's a great recipe, and with their permission, I'm going to proceed with this version that is for people who are on the keto and low-carb, high-fat diets. In fact, today, I'm going to do two versions of this recipe. We're going to do an oven-baked version of these onion rings, as well as one where I fry them in some ghee on top of the stove, and we'll kind of do a little taste comparison test with that at the end of the video. So let's get started. Here are the ingredients you'll need to make these incredible onion rings. I'm going to start off here with a cup and a half of keto breadcrumbs. These I made from my 90-second microwave almond flour bread. I'm going to put a link up here, right here, so you can just click on it. You can also find it on my channel. What I did with these was I made the bread in the microwave. I made 2 servings of it, sliced it thinly. Each one I sliced into about 4 slices, and then I dried it on a rack on a sheet pan in a 225-degree oven for about an hour. They were pretty dry when they came out of there, so I crumbled them with my hands into a blender, and then I had them blended into these nice breadcrumbs we see. You're also going to need 2 large eggs right here. We're going to beat those up. We're going to do a classic dredging, kind of an Italian procedure. And we're also going to start off here not with all-purpose flour, as generally people do, but here we're going to start off with, this is a cup of oat fiber. Not oat flour, oat fiber, has no carbs and no calories. We also have a teaspoon of baking powder here. Of course, freshly ground black pepper and kosher salt. I've also got some ghee. That's what I'm going to use to fry the onion rings that I fry in. And this is some canola oil spray. That is just a non-stick spray that everybody uses. Anyway, and you're also going to need, of course, a nice yellow onion. Now, our first order of business is going to be to cut this into some nice rounds. The first thing you want to do, of course, is to cut off the root end. And then, of course, oops, get rid of all that paper there. Just going to let that fall off. And, of course, the stem end here, too. I'm going to remove that. We use that for stock or something. Don't always throw away my onion scraps. And then here, well, we can get some of the paper off this way. But just so that everything remains intact in nice roundels here, I'm going to cut them to be about a ½ inch or so thick. We're going to leave that paper on there for now. We're going to take it off in just a moment. You want to cut carefully because you don't have a flat surface on the onion to keep the onion from slipping. I think this will be my last cut here. We'll have some nice thick ones. There we have it. Then we're just going to remove this paper outer layer and get that out of there. Get the paper out. We don't want that on our onion rings necessarily. That wouldn't hurt anything, of course. And then we're just going to push out the rings gently because we want them to remain intact, of course. Ooh, little membrane there. You got a little patience at times. Anyway, we're going to, here we go. Make them into nice rings, and I'm going to put them in this bowl of cold tap water while I remove the skins and get these ready for the next step. Before I dredge my onion rings, I'm going to spray my pan generously with cooking spray. You could, of course, just use olive oil if you want. You do want cooking spray for later on in the recipe, and I'll show you why. And I've also got a plate reserved here for the ones that I'm going to fry in the oil. And so I'm just going to set this aside and move on to our dredging here. Now to get started with our dredging, we still need to prepare some of our ingredients. Here for our eggs, I'm going to add just a pinch of salt and some freshly ground black pepper. I'm actually going to add a little bit of salt and a little bit of freshly ground black pepper to the other ingredients as well here. We want to season at every stage. We're also going to add our baking powder right here to the oat fiber. And I'm going to whisk that together, just get all that combined. It's going to give us a little bit of a light, airier texture and a good crunch. Mix all that in. And you don't want to overdo it with the seasoning, but your ingredients really need to be well seasoned for everything to taste delicious at the end. Here I'm going to beat these thoroughly up. Great. Excellent. Now we're ready to go with our dredging process. I'm going to try to move these all three within the camera. Notice, Mitch, don't go crazy, but my bowls don't match. Kind of an inside joke there. If you watch their video, you'll get that. Anyway, here's what we do. Really very simple. Now, when you're dredging anything, no matter what it is, for frying or for baking in the oven like this, you want to keep one hand clean and go ahead and mess up the other hand. So I'm just going to use my hand. Mitch uses a fork to do this. And he's very neat, I'm sure. Anyway, good on you, Mitch, but I'm kind of a slob in the kitchen. Use my hands here. I'm going to coat the onions in the oat fiber and baking soda and salt and pepper mixture. Then, of course, in the egg. And then in the end, in our keto breadcrumbs here. And while I do this, I'm just going to place them one at a time, fairly neatly on my baking sheet, like that. I'm going to continue on until I've completed all of the onion slices. I know I said you don't really have to watch me coat all of these onions with breading, but let me just say something while I'm doing this that I'm thinking about. Of course, there are a lot of you out there on the keto diet. I know, of course, you're very conscious about counting your macros and everything, and here you're thinking, oh, onions have carbs. In one yellow onion, there are 6 carbs. Okay, that is actually 4.5 grams of total carb, because there's of course some fiber in an onion. So, you know, if you can work, like I think one onion is a really generous serving for 2 people. If you can work 3 or, you know, 2.5 or 3 grams of fiber into your diet and have some delicious onion rings, I know I'm going to be doing that. So you go right ahead, but don't be afraid of the carbs in onions. It's very few carbs, and I don't know, for me the keto diet is really a low carb, not a no carb diet. I am going to get a few carbs in my day. I actually don't really count very closely or at all some of the time. But I'm also not in a big, huge hurry to lose weight. I'm losing weight at a rate that is good for me, and you got to do what you got to do for yourself. But if you're worried about the carbs in onions, you want to maybe rethink that, because it's not as bad as you think. Oh no, in mid-recipe, I've run out of breadcrumbs. It's a crisis. No, it's really not. I've just got a few onion rings left here. What I'm going to do is I've made another batch of the mixture I made with the oat fiber and baking powder and some salt and pepper. I made a little bit more of that. I'm just going to dredge them twice in that. Let's see how that goes. Again, same process. Coat it with flour, dip it in the egg mixture. This is what's going to help the oat fibers stick to it, or the breadcrumbs or whatever. And here we're just going to put it in there. And we'll see how these do, both in the oven and when fried in ghee. Okay, so here we are. We're all breaded up. Here we've got the ones we're going to fry in ghee, and here are the ones we're going to put in the oven. Before we put them in the oven, actually, which, as I mentioned before, is preheated to 400 degrees, I'm going to give these a good spray with my cooking spray. Right, now we're ready to stick them in the oven. These are going to go in there for 12 to 15 minutes, and then we're going to turn them over and give them another 12 to 15. For our stovetop high-fat version, here I've got about 3 or maybe 4 tablespoons of ghee that I'm heating in the bottom of the skillet. You can see it's just starting to smoke. That's exactly when we want to put our rings in there. I'm going to turn the heat down just slightly while we do that. Notice how that sizzles. Get them in there. I don't want to crowd my pan too much, but we can get a couple in there. And we're just going to let those go until they brown on one side. Then I'm going to turn them over and brown them on the other. Should take altogether about 3 to 5 minutes. Once I notice them start to brown, I turn them over just to check real quick. Well, if I can get a hold of it. There we go. Look, that's really very nice. That's actually pretty brown right there. Of course, we're not dealing with wheat flour here, so we're going to have a little bit of browning. I'm not afraid of that. We want to cook these long enough so that the onions get soft and that our coating gets nice and browned on both sides. And I'll show you that when we get done with all of these. Timer just went off and I pulled these out of the oven. Look at those, they're just beautiful. I think it maybe with the exception of the oat fiber ones look a little rough there, but I'll bet they're tasty. I'm going to put these on a nice plate. Now, sorry Mitch, we're fresh out of doilies in this house. I'm using a paper towel here. I'm just going to remove them quickly with my asbestos fingers here because I guess I don't respect my hands too much. No, it's all right. They're hot, but they're not gonna burn me up here. Anyway, nice plate of onion rings. I removed the onion rings that I fried also to a plate with a paper towel on it, and you can see here they are. They've drained a little bit. That's nice. They actually feel pretty good there, and they're nice and browned, maybe a little browner than we want, but certainly not burned. Let's do a taste test. Okay, great. On my left here, I've got the fried onion rings. On my right, I've got the really pretty much Kitchen Queer's super crunchy baked onion rings here. Let's give them a try. We've got one of the fried ones. You know what? That is really pretty good. Got a little bit of a crunch to it. A little bit of a crunch to it. Yeah, it's good. It's good. It's a little bit greasy though. I gotta say, it soaked up a lot of that ghee, which is delicious. And again, if you want high fat, you're gonna love that. Let's try one of the super crunchy baked. Nice, very delicate and lovely. Now, crunchy. I gotta say, with the coating I've used, not really crunchy, but it's a nice coating. Well, maybe a little bit of a crunch. And that is a delicious onion ring. Wow, I'm gonna serve these up with a pork barbecue sandwich right after I get done taping this video. And listen, thank you so much for watching Tim Talks Cooking. And I hope that you'll subscribe and share, like, comment the whole bit. And we will catch you next time on Tim Talks.